Welcome back to another episode of That's Business. We are thrilled to celebrate our 100th episode and do things a little differently today. My name is Destiny Hinson, and I work as the Business Operations Manager for the Resume Rescue. In today's episode, myself, Elena Yanish, Allison Whitehead, will be interviewing our beloved host, Angela Buccellato, to share insights on her journey to 100 episodes of That's Business.
How are you feeling today in the hot seat, Angela?
You know, before we dive into the hot seat, I just want to pop this off real quick.
Ooh, love it.
You know what? Let's cheers real quick.
Cheers.
Woo,
Cheers to the 100th.
Woo.
We did it.
And yeah, before I ask the questions, which I have no clue what they are, this is just crazy. It's just crazy. It's been 100 episodes, almost 2 years. So I'm excited and also nervous.
Does it feel weird being on the other side?
It does, because when people are like, I'm so nervous, I'm like, what? It's just a conversation.
Yeah.
We'll get through it. So it's totally fine here.
All right, sweet. So we're going to start off with Allison to start your terrorizing for the day.
Do your worst, Allison.
I will. I'll try my best. I'm going to start it off strong, Angela, with who is your dream podcast guest?
Hard for me to pick one, but I would absolutely love to have Sarah Blakely, former CEO of Spanx, and Mark Cuban are like the ultimate dream. Love me some Ryan Reynolds and Rihanna. So the reason I picked those ones, Sarah Blakely started her business at 21 out of her apartment. Just this idea. She sold copiers before and just has like this awesome story. And I started this business at 24, so definitely relate to it. When she sold Spanx, I forget, for some ungodly amount of money, like $2 billion, she bought every single employee 2 round-trip tickets wherever you wanted to go in the world.
Amazing.
And $10,000.
Oh, nice. Just a little
Vacation money.
little treat.
Everyone, I feel like, knows what Spanx are.
Oh, yeah.
Women, doesn't matter, but it's just such a huge company, and the fact that she treats her employees very well and like practices what she preaches. And I very much like try to embody the same with all of you. Mark Cuban, that like just does so much for other people. I mean, he owns the Mavericks, and I'll never forget, it was like one game, it's like, if you swear, you're going to have to donate like 10 grand to charity. So he just goes like,
F.
yes. And he gives like 50 grand to charity.
Oh, that's cool. He's leaving Shark Tank.
I know.
I know.
He is.
The show is going downhill. He's the best part of the show.
I agree.
Yeah.
Really great. So I like Mark Cuban's story because he also yes, he's a billionaire, but he also is working on a pharmaceutical company that provides drugs at cost. I mean, just like really remembering his roots of where he came from and never is like disrespectful towards that. Oh, Dave Grohl. Dave Grohl would be just like...
You love some Dave Grohl.
Of course, with the whole Nirvana, Foo Fighters, who is one of my favorite bands, but I think I would simply be deceased.
It'd be like, this episode needs to be a full day. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. Yeah.
I'd be freaking out. I'd probably cry. It's fine.
It's fine. 1 hour for crying, next hour for actual questions, hanging out. Like, you can't tell them. It's a whole assignment.
Yes. But really the target would be like local celebrities like Johnny Kane, Brad Golly, any of like the professional sports players, and then kind of grow into like more on a corporate scale when I have like some street cred on the podcast.
Talked about Jack White would be a great
street
one.
cred.
So whoever has the connections, let us know. I guess speaking of that, all your dream guests and everything, what kind of motivated you to even start the podcast?
My kind of joke was always like, if I were to redo life again, I would want to be Jimmy Fallon or have like a talk show like Jimmy Fallon. I used to love Ellen before she was problematic, but I just love that side of it, and just kind of like getting to meet cool people and just like having fun and like having real conversations about like what's going on in the world. And then I had a friend, Nick Jetta, who was our very first podcast guest, and he's like, I'm so sick of you saying, I've known you for 2 years and you keep saying you're going to have a podcast and you won't do it. So January 7th, we're recording the podcast and it's going out and I'm sick of you hearing about it. I'm like, I don't know what to do. So
it's scary.
Yeah, so scary. So I did it and got better with time. Like, I was very nervous, and I said right after everything he said, and I can't listen to that podcast episode. And of course, it's the most downloaded, but
sorry, Nick.
Yes, it was a really great episode, but I just like was so nervous with it. And over time, like with anything in life, you get better. So Nick was definitely the push me off the cliff to fly, and it's been fun. And here we are.
We got to shout out John too, John Gay, who produces our podcast. We've learned so much from him. Sometimes it's not always things we want to hear, but that's how we know what we need to fix. Because how do you know unless you're doing this every day?
Right.
You know.
Or just little things like in a natural conversation, you want to say right, you want to like agree, you want to bring that up, but you shouldn't do that on a podcast because it overrides each other. So John has been like absolutely pivotal in how to format the podcast and the logistics and making me sound like $1 million. So we love you. And Nick was very much like, just ask people. I'm like, who's going to want to be on my stupid little podcast?
Anybody.
Right.
Everybody. So speaking of who wants to be on your podcast or who has been on your podcast, who is your favorite guest so far? I know it's hard to pick one.
I knew you were going to ask this too. And I was like, I need to look at all 99 other episodes and who would be my favorite. But
the problematic child.
Yes, of course.
Wrinkles and issues.
Yes, always. It just really depends. I mean, I learned something from every episode. Amanda Sweet was incredibly inspiring. Benji was awesome. Jessica Williams, Kamara Mayberry going off about HR and like the issues with it there.
You've had some great guests. We've had some great conversations. Yeah, some really interesting people from all walks of life. We have an architect. We've had a scientist. We've had someone from the metaverse. We've had, we've seen it all.
Yeah, and it's just been fun and trying to get as diverse as possible. I had my good friend Brady Gunn on, she's a makeup artist. She does eyelashes. She does tarot card readings, like super cool and badass to the core. Each conversation is completely different and never goes the way I think it will go, which is fun. So I can't pick a favorite.
Do you think that's your goal too, going into the episode? Like, how can I make this different? Or are you just kind of winging it every episode?
Every episode, I really want to make sure the guest feels empowered to talk about themselves and to tell their story through and through. So when I have friends that I know their story like the back of my hand, that they're promoting themselves in the best way. They're telling their stories because they tell themselves that same negative self-talk that's like, no one cares, no one does this. I'm like, no, actually people do care.
Right.
So my goal with it is to, yes, be inspirational and yes, have someone get something out of it. Having military vets on the podcast, like people from all walks of life and just like really embodying like what inclusivity and diversity is. Not just having one person in the same field or, you know, we could do, hey, let's just say all your successes and talk about that.
That's what you always say about our podcast. It's not braggy. We don't have people on here to brag about what they do, that they're Ivy Leaguers or that they got money from their parents to help them get where they are. It's very much like, this is what I did. This is what I went through to get where I am today. I feel like it's very relatable no matter what the industry is.
Yeah. And that was the goal, is to like, I want it to be relatable because I love a good underdog story, as y'all know, but I don't want, oh, look at how successful I am. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I love that if you've had your parents help you out or you had investors, like that's awesome. That's not our story, but and this is what I say with all of you. I'm like, one day we're going to sit back and be like, oh, remember when we were struggling and now we're a multi-million-dollar company. We'll develop accents too. So.
Yeah, exactly. Gonna be so fancy. We'll have accents.
Yes. But it's just like, this is the fun growing stages. And those are the stories I want to tell of people who are like figuring it out. And some people on the podcast have been like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I don't know what that next thing is. And that's great. Or we've had people that got fired from their jobs and were hyping up on the podcast too. And we're very real about that.
All right. So now we're going to hit it back to Allison.
Angela, what do you think is the hardest part of running your own podcast?
I will say, like John and I did an event on how to start your podcast. And I very much shared, like, it doesn't take long to show up and record, but the logistics take a while. Like Destiny sends out all the details. Destiny is the one that coordinates it. Destiny is the one that makes sure the files get sent to John. John makes me sound pretty and beautiful. And I just kind of like show up. So we have someone we hired off Upwork or Fiverr that does our reels, but I honestly don't think it's hard, but I'm biased and I'm very clear on that of like, I have Destiny. We have John. We have...
It's a lot of moving pieces.
Yes.
It's not just record and go, because again, speaking of John again, we think it's going to be a great episode and we did what we were supposed to. And then the sound quality is horrible. Or, you know, we completely didn't press record or
Yeah.
something.
I think it's the logistics.
Yes, that is easily the hardest part.
I think the logistics and the, like you said, making sure we hit record. And I mean, it took a hot minute to get this all set up for this one,
Yes.
but
As I've said before, I'm not a sound engineer.
Yes,
We're
you
just
are.
not.
no. And is this podcast making me money? You can argue we've gotten clients from it, sure. But right now we're not seeing the ROI from it because it's a fun passion project. Like, will we see it in the future? Sure. Like, you have to start somewhere.
Yes.
But I think the hardest part, especially last year, was more so like, am I doing this right? Like, do people care? Is it not getting downloads? But the coolest thing was just seeing it grow and people like stopping me in public and say, like, people I know and saying like, okay, I freaking love this episode. This was super cool. Or something that may not have been impactful to me was impactful to someone else.
Right.
The hardest part is like the logistics and making sure the sound sounds good or the details sound good, I would say is like the big piece of it. So
Yes.
I don't really
It's
know.
technical.
yes.
Again, we're becoming sound engineers every day.
Very sound
though.
engineers,
We're
yes.
getting there. So kind of with that being said, you know, running a podcast, how do you choose the questions, I guess, that you want to ask?
So this drives people a little crazy, but Destiny and I came up with about 10 questions. We do send out to everyone as far as like, what do you want to be when you grew up and a few of the other pieces. But I start the questions like always talking about childhood. And then I always end on what advice would you give to listeners? Those are the two I always say. But this is where my ADHD like really shines on a spotlight because you have to flow with conversation. I mean, I've been on podcasts where it's question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. And it feels so awkward. It's like just like a checklist on the conversation. And I don't feel like I gave value versus, you know, when you connect with someone in person, it's because you're flowing, you're going back and forth, you're checking the energy, you feel good. But that's what I aim to do with this podcast and try to get people away from like pretend we're not recorded and we're like sitting in a bar, sitting in a coffee shop, whatever you need. So that's been super cool. But I do come up with them on the spot. So I know that gives people anxiety.
Well, it's not me, but we know we come up with these questions and it's really rare that she sticks to the questions. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, majority of the time she'll ask the first couple questions and then we're off.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good thing. I think that's what makes a good episode, that she didn't ask every single question because that meant it was an organic conversation. That meant that you just let it flow instead of just being like, okay, next question. We need to know what you're doing here, there.
Well,
So,
and different people have different aspects of life.
yes.
Like high school, I had a great time in high school.
Yes.
Like I loved high school. Not everyone agrees with that.
Exactly.
College, I think, was like, yeah, made me grow up, but I also had major depression and
Right.
anxiety in college.
Right.
So like I don't have the big like pieces there.
Drink to that.
Cheers. Mental health. Cheers. Growth. Exactly. So it's really just important to like vibe with other people, the guest, and say like, hey, like Jason Brown knew when he was little he wanted to do marketing and he like was writing storybooks and getting into PR and doing all that. So
He's a pro.
yes, but it's like, okay, let's shine light on that first versus like my childhood, I've come to realize is like, oh shit, like I had my own lemonade stands and like bracelet business. I actually have been an entrepreneur before, funny enough, and my mom has always supported me, but it's realizing like the journey everyone is on. If we're Schitt's Creek fans, like I love that journey for you, but
Ew, David.
But just like vibe with people, like read the room, have that emotional intelligence, like self-awareness.
And know where the conversation's going.
Exactly.
Don't just, yes.
Like I don't want to be like, oh wait, childhood, like walk me through.
We have to get there. And that's what I love about it. That's what I think a lot of people like about it too. It just, again, it feels like a normal conversation with a friend.
Right. And that's the goal of it. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, this is one of my favorites because I've seen you in live action throughout different events we've gone to, Michigan Tech Week, all of that fun stuff. So how do you decide who is a guest? I'll start with that, and then I have a second follow-up.
Oh, 2-for-1er.
A twofer.
So I just walk up to people. Like,
Yeah.
if I think they have a cool story, I'm like, heck yeah. I got introduced to Tawny Hammond from a mutual friend, and It's not out yet, but she does animal welfare, and she has been a TEDx speaker and has been like this absolute badass. Is not one for self-promotion, but a quick little Google search. I'm like, girlfriend, you need to go off. Like, you are doing such incredible things. So a mutual friend thought we'd be a good connection. So I'm like, hey, you should be on my podcast. Or someone I met yesterday, I was like, hey, you need to be on my podcast. So it's just like people who have like a good underdog story, or just like, hey, I want to roll with the punches. I mean, I just met someone that she graduated college in 2020, helped her dad's business, and with like goal setting and looking at metrics of creating employee engagement programs to eliminate turnover, because he had massive turnover during the pandemic, even though he's a good boss. So she had a great story of like, her dad had her in future entrepreneur shirts, and he was very much like women's rights, and like as a dad should be. So she's going to be a guest on the podcast because we vibed, and our 20-minute conversation turned into an hour. So it's just like talking to people, and what's the worst that could happen is they say no, and then we move on. I mean, people tell us no, or just like don't respond. Whatever.
I know. I have to give you props because she'll always like send me people to ask, and I'm like, this person's like a big deal. So for example, like Benji from TEDx, we watched him in action, and we just loved his TEDx talk. And she was like, email him. Ask him if he wants to be on the podcast. Are you sure? We just ask him? Like, I don't know. And what do you know? He said yes. Tim Finkel, like, we got some great guests from TEDx.
Mike Jeter.
Yes.
And those are...
Oh, yes. Mike was a fun one, too.
Mike was so fun.
I always forget about that one.
It's just like, Benji Rosenzweig was on stage, and he's like this huge advocate for Coffin-Cyrus syndrome, and he's been around the world, and he's doing a lot of great things, but it doesn't hurt to just like ask questions, or just like tell them like, hey, look, this is what I have. Like, this is what the podcast does. I think you have a super cool story. And we don't give a novel. I mean, Destiny and I created it ourselves. It's like, here's a paragraph. Here's a link to listen. Like, you in or you out.
Yes. It's very simple. So like I said, I admire your courage for that. Like, you just have to ask.
Ooh, Destiny. Okay. Oh, so that's my second part of the question. So I've kind of seen this in live action too, which is super cool, of, Michigan Tech Week and running into former NFL players and Sophia Bush that we got to talk to for a while and things like that.
Shout out Sophia.
She is, oh my gosh, obsessed.
Even more beautiful in person.
Everybody's obsessed with her. She is the best. So getting the courage, because I feel like part of it is innate to you, of just, you're so fearless in everything that you do inside of everything. But what kind of drove that, or what is the easiest aspect of getting the courage to go do these things? Because it's not easy to walk up to somebody that has like 7 million followers on Instagram.
Yes, right.
Like, I had to have 2 FaceTime calls to go take a picture with her. So, like, what did you do?
Elena did disappear for a little bit. I'm like, where the heck did she go?
She was hyping her stuff up.
Yeah, I was like, hello? I need some validation.
So before, and I am not always this person, and y'all are making me blush over here, and I'm like, oh gosh, they really think of me that way? That's so crazy, as I have mental breakdowns on the reg, but it's fine. We do.
Imposter syndrome.
It's fine. But growing up, I was very, like, I was an extroverted kid, but I always cared what people thought. I always was, I want to wear this, I want to wear that, like, I need to look this way. I mean, I was a trendsetter because I loved pleather leggings and the colored skinny jeans, the band tees, and lo and behold, that's the new trend now. So like, there's a little girl.
You're ahead of the curve.
I was ahead of the curve. Like, there was a little girl.
Trendsetter.
I was in Dallas, and this girl is like total punk, like has the choker on, the Doc Martens.
Bringing me back.
Oh, yeah.
Studded belt.
And she did.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, honey, I walk so you could run, and I love that for you.
Actually, you're here because of me. Okay.
I look like an idiot for this, so you could thrive. You're welcome.
Yeah. I went into the dark, scary Hot Topic, before it was lit up and painted white. So come on. So you and your mom could feel more comfortable. I was there. All right.
I was an OG. Exactly.
Yes.
So, and I think it just turned into, I was in awful relationships before, of just like partners who just were like, you're going nowhere in your life, you're fat, you're this, you're that, like, you name it, mental abuse, like, to a T. And I like started to believe that. And then I had some choice things happen, and I'm like, why the fuck am I thinking this way? Like, this is so stupid.
Yes.
So that kind of like started to bring that out. And like, owning a business, I mean, I was so scared. And as a lot of you know, like, I help transitioning military vets find work, and I'm like, yeah, they have issues, let me help. I've always been like, how do I help? How do I help? What do I do? So like when my aunt was diagnosed with breast cancer in ninth grade, and I wanted to do the 3-day Susan G. Komen walk for a cure. You have to raise $2,300 for one person to walk. So I was like, we're going to get enough for her to walk. And my mom and I came up with like, let's do bottle drives. We were banned from Hollywood. I kid you not. They're still assigned to this day, 15 years later.
No way.
That says you can't spend more than $25 because of us.
That's amazing.
Crazy. So I've always been this person, like, I love helping people. I want to make a difference and like really empowerment there. So we ended up raising, I think, like $10,000-$12,000. And we were known, like, because we were in high school and we were known as, I guess, the bottle cap babes.
I love so cute.
And we were on like they do practice walks. So we're on a practice walk and someone's talking like, oh yeah, this young team from Rochester, like they're in high school and they've raised all this money from bottle can drives. And I'm like, you're talking about us? Like what? So that was super cool. So I know I got so off topic here, but
what?
Oh my gosh. Angela, off topic? Never heard of her.
Allison, you're my favorite. I hate both of them.
Oh no. Put the divider up.
Divider done. But it was just kind of like embodying that. And then the scariest thing happened. I got fired from my job. I was living paycheck to paycheck and all those things happen. I mean, I worked 3 jobs. It wasn't a glorious, like, I quit my job and I made all this money. Like, I cried a lot. I left when I hired Destiny and I sobbed in my car in Royal Oak. And I'm like, what if I can't pay your paycheck? Like, she quit her full-time comfy job with benefits. And what if I can't pay your paycheck? So, ta-da, here we are 4 years later.
4 years later.
Yes.
Every single one of us did that,
perfect.
though. We were like, yeah, we'll get on board with you. Like,
yes,
I don't want this corporate America stuff. Like, I want what you have to offer.
Yes.
And it's just like listening to what people are telling you. Like, the fact that you quit your job, I will like, yes, I love all of you, but like, I will forever have a special place in my heart for you, Destiny, because you quit your full-time job to be my first employee. Like, that's insane.
Well, I believed in, first of all, we got along really well. We had the same energy. And I also felt like, what a cool opportunity to kind of hit the ground running with you in this business, you know? And I'm like, she's good at what she does. Like, even if I didn't become your employee, I would have become your customer. I was ready to spend money with you and have you redo my resume.
Run it up.
Yes, I did not have the money. I did not have the money. I was like, you know what? She knows what she's doing. Yeah, exactly. Call my boyfriend.
Babe.
Yeah, my now husband. Hey, we're doing this. But so it all worked out.
And it's just like those chances. I mean, when I hired you and then we got crazy and I'm like, okay, you took off half my plate. And then I'm like, I need another resume writer.
Yep.
So you found Allison in a Facebook group of OU alumni, hilarious enough. But it's just like,
Go Grizzlies.
Shout out. But buying into the person and just like, if you show fear, they're going to be fearful. Like how kids react, how dogs or animals react to you. So, I mean, there's been plenty of times I've shared with y'all and I've kept plenty of like tears and things to me. But I mean, relating back to the podcast, it's just like the scary things happen. I mean, there's been times I've taken from my personal account to pay both of you last year when we were struggling and didn't do like financial planning. Shout out to Nick Wellham because we now do that.
Thank you.
But we have a lot of Nicks in our network. But I wasn't trained this. Like, I have my bachelor's, I have my master's, and you roll with the punches. I mean, a podcast, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And I knew I wasn't going to learn how to edit it.
Yes.
Like, I don't have the bandwidth. That's not generating revenue for me. Like, what's our opportunity costs on that? Versus, like, I'm not seeing, oh, look, this amount is making us. But it's just cool. The scary stuff has already happened, and that's okay to see.
Basically, the courage is just do it. You're going to figure it out.
Well, I think the other thing is being your biggest advocate.
Yeah.
If you, like everything that you had said, like if you don't have the balls to step up and go do something, somebody else will, or they'll tell you you can do it. So you're going to box yourself in.
Yeah, that's the TLDR.
And I feel like of anything that you do, it's never that. Like you're always the biggest advocate for yourself. Like I'd rather go crash and burn down that hill and like be like, oh, I can't do it. Like I'm just not capable. Then not go try to crash and burn first.
And we have crash and burn. Like we trusted someone to help with our website the very first time and our email was down for 2 days and that was an absolute disaster.
And that's how we communicate with all our clients. That's our main form of communication. It's fine. It worked out. It was fine. We worked it out. That was a fun little...
Yeah. And I made plenty of mistakes of spending money where I thought it would yield us ROI and it didn't. Or now we learn, and it hasn't been a cakewalk and just like, look at how great and wonderful we are. I mean, especially with this podcast too, it was like, do I want to spend the money to do it? Because John does not work for free, but he does a phenomenal job.
Amazing.
So he should work for free.
Part 2.
Part 4.
7.
But I made that conscious decision of like, when I make it big, because I do envision that, like, I would love to be the next Sarah Blakely and have an empire and just like incredible employees that support me as y'all do. I want to go back and it sounds great.
Yeah.
And that was the big focus. So some of the episodes, like I said, the first few, because John didn't come till like, I don't know, I think episode 5 or so, but it's just like, what do you want to spend your time in? What do you want to invest in? And I really believe in opportunity cost, and where do you want to be in the next few years? Because like you talked about, Destiny, like we do send it to clients. And
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
You want to get into this career path? Here's someone that did.
Yeah.
So we're going to kick it back to Allison.
Angela, based on everything you said and like what you want for your future, how do you really see the podcast like growing in the future? Where do you see it going? What are your plans?
Ooh, that's such a great question. The podcast has so many opportunities for growth there, where it's all about what you want to get out of it. So the podcast, I mean, it sold us business, but I want to get sponsorships on it. I want to very much like be a top trending podcast. Like, who doesn't want that, right? But I want this to be something that people use for growth. I want this to be something people use for inspiration. And as we know, we are not the ones that like toxic inspiration. That's like, quit your job and make millions. And this is so easy. Like, having the underdog stories and being realistic with everything. So I just want it to grow to be a piece that people rely on and just feel really inspired with.
Angela, the next question I got for you is, what do you think your proudest moment is so far from the podcast?
Oh, let's see. My proudest moment from our podcast, I think the fact that we're in 39 countries is super cool. I mean, I don't know why. And sometimes like, you know, like the 38th and 39th country are like one download,
Right.
which is still fine. But like I think number 2 to 5 are still like 100 downloads each. So that's
not a
been
bot.
super cool.
That's like those are people listening.
Yeah,
That's
no.
crazy. Yeah.
And that's been wild to me because it continues to grow. So I would say that's my biggest accomplishment, or just like people that just say yes.
Yeah. Right.
So as we've talked about earlier, but I just can't wait to see where it continues to grow there. So
other countries.
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
I also just,
yeah.
I just want to brag on her for a quick second. Being inside of like the sales industry and everything else that we've been doing as a company, it's super cool to see everything that's grown from there so far. So to then see everything from the podcast perspective of everything as a company just booming. Like,
Yes.
it's so cool when we do our different review meetings and things like that. Of there's so many proud accomplishments she could have in terms of partnerships and things like that, and
Right.
different things that have been delegated and been sought after for a long period of time.
Right.
And then also to be tackling it from a podcast standpoint, I'm like, you're doing everything.
Yes.
Like there's no break.
And that's what's cool about having a small business too, is you can watch from where we started and how we grew. When you kind of walk into a corporation, you don't see the growth as much, I guess.
Yeah.
You're kind of told what it is, and they tell you these little small margins, but what does that mean? You don't really know what that means.
Right.
We get to see firsthand our growth, and we get to see the impact that it makes. So that is pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing us in, Ange.
sure thing. But I want to talk about that because a lot of people push back on me. They're like,
Yeah.
you pay your employees this amount of money. I mean, we've had our accountant who we love dearly, but he's like, yeah, your margins of what you pay your employees is double what it should be. And some people want to be solo.
Oopsies.
And I don't mean this as a bragging point, but this has been a topic lately of like, you pay your employees what they're worth. Like, I have to sit here and I have to practice what I preach to all of you. I can't say like, get a raise, get this,
Right.
and do all this shit, and then
Yeah.
pay you guys like garbage and you
Right.
can't survive. But have there been times where maybe I shouldn't have? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I now can step away from the day to day or like the client fulfillment and get us new leads or get us new opportunities or, you know, Allison and I going to women in manufacturing, that has the ROI on that has been 5x on it. I mean, we've brought in so much revenue and so many partnerships from that piece. But as a business owner, I just realized how much BS I dealt with in corporate for having multi-million-dollar companies I worked for. And then they're like, sorry, we're having record profits, but we can't pay you anything. It's like, yeah, you can.
Yes, you can.
You can.
Right. That is the most frustrating.
Right.
Here's a pizza party.
And it's a quarter of a slice of pizza.
Yes. Oh, yeah, we need to share. We only got one large pizza for all of you. Sorry.
The pizza parties.
Don't miss it.
Nope.
So speaking of kind of corporate, different industries, where do you want to see more guests from the podcast? Like, which industries are you kind of hoping to get into?
Just trying to find people with unique stories. So we have targeted like the arts. So we had a tattoo artist, makeup artist, astrologer. I guess I would consider artsy.
Yeah.
But now we're getting into more science-based ones. So I would really like to have like someone that truly represents every single possible job out there.
Yeah. I would like to see a musician. I know we've been talking about musicians.
I know.
That would be a fun one. We need a musician because we're right. We've kind of covered a lot. We've covered architects, scientists, comedians. We've had kind of a lot, but no musicians.
I know.
So again, think of us, you guys. info@resumerescue.com. If you know anybody, send them our way.
Please. Yes. And that's the goal is like, I'd love to, I have a DJ we'll have that comes on, but I would ideally love to have someone that has a decent following or is like decently known, you know, for an artist or even if it's just like on a local scale. But I mean, seeing the success of this so far and seeing that we've hit 5,000 downloads, which is so awesome. And I was like, holy shit, 5,000 people like care about what I have to ramble about. Cool.
And that's the thing I want to kind of mention too, is obviously we're getting a lot from this podcast, what we want out of it, but it's not just for us, it's for the guest as well.
Right.
So the guest can shout out their business. They can shout out what they're doing. So it's kind of like free advertisement for them too. So it's a win-win for everybody. Just sign up and talk about yourself. Angela's a fun person to talk to. Obviously, we're fun people.
Meet up.
And a side note for anybody listening, if you're hearing a little bit of a pounding, Angela is a beautiful Italian woman, expressive. So she's making her point, and just so you know, that's what you're hearing. Our girl is hitting the point. She's passionate.
I tried that. Like I tried to not talk with my hands when I started this business of like, oh, I'm going to be a guest on things. Like I need to not swear. I need to not talk with my hands. And then I'm like, who's telling me that? Like, be who you are. Yes. So as I want to talk with my hands right now, but and pound the table.
Her elbows. Like, I wish you guys could watch her. She's keeping her hands. So it's funny. No, now everyone knows. Now everyone knows. It's fine.
They know, but it's like just be yourself.
Exactly.
Hone into it. It's fine.
So on that note, Angela, what do you think is the biggest thing that you've learned or taken away from this podcast?
Just do the damn thing. Like, it's not as scary as it needs to be. I mean, it's like, a podcast is like so crazy. And I just like compare myself. I mean, despite what you believe, like Joe Rogan has a very successful podcast that generates him millions of dollars. And it's like, holy crap, like just the top tier celebrities and everyone that's a guest on his podcast. So or comparing to the podcasts I know of that are very legitimate and very much like regularly listened to, or true crime podcasts like Destiny loves to listen to. Yes. So it was very much like, I'm not like that. I can't do that. There's no way. It's super scary. But as I talked about, is like, I felt the same way about running a business. I felt the same way graduating college. I felt the same way of like buying a house. And
yes, you can.
You can. I mean, you kind of figure it out. And has it been always great? No. We've had times where Destiny is like, we don't have a podcast episode for next week. So like, you need to record one or get it out. Or, you know, we
need to reach out to 20 people. Yeah. We need to figure it out.
Like, it's stressful too, but
it takes a village.
It does.
It takes a village. And it's not just podcasting. It's everything. Anything you think you want to kind of bring yourself to do, it takes a village. You need help from your family, from your friends, from your connections. Like it doesn't always have to be just on you.
Right. And I think it's just relying on that or just like sharing it. And people do care.
Yes.
And I shared on my personal Facebook and I said like, hey, I'm close to 5,000. Like if you're interested, like download it. And we hit 5,000 or we're very close to it. But
we're huge with the bamboo co-working space. Everyone loves us over there, apparently.
Yes.
Apparently. Yeah.
So it's not as scary. There's other scary things, but it's the imposter syndrome of like, who cares? It's like, this isn't for you. This is for me. Like, I want to have conversations with people. And if someone gets something out of it, like, hell yeah, that's even better. But if they don't, like, okay, on to the next one.
Exactly.
Speaking of scary things, I would like to bring it back from the first time I was on this podcast and give you a scary thing. What advice do you have for your listeners to this podcast? Since you love to give us all that one.
She asks this to the end of every episode for every guest.
Episode. What advice do you have for the listeners? And
now it's her turn.
No pressure, but 100 episodes of asking people what advice do they have? I hope you feel a little bit of pressure.
I don't feel any pressure. It's, do I want to make this a 1 minute, 5 minute, or 10-minute answer?
Ooh,
so
that is always the question with
7.
Angela.
We like 7. Okay.
7's a good luck number.
Let's jump in, guys.
Okay. Advice. Whatever things are not serving you, get out of it, whether it's relationships, employees, parents, whatever. If just because they're blood related does not mean they deserve your time and energy. Check your energy. One of my very best friends, Kristen, shout out to Kristen. We love her dearly. Kristen and I check in, like, how did you feel after that interaction? And I say, like, do I feel like I can run a marathon as someone who wears a size 10, is narrow, and is flat-footed? I cannot run, and has torn my ligament in my leg twice. I can't run.
Yeah.
But if I feel like I can run a marathon, or I feel inspired, I feel like I can do all these things, that's where the friendships that are no longer serving you, the relationships, the people, you know, things like that. But if a job... if you have an awful boss, an awful company, like, please leave. I wasted 2 years of my life at the last company that ended up firing me and threw me out like a bag of trash.
Yeah.
If you have this idea for a business, like, start it. I mean, you have an idea for a podcast, do it. Like, you did the scary things already. What you don't know, like, ask for help. You are not the end all be all. I know that is, like, my number one piece of business advice is, like, know your strengths and hire where you don't know, because I suck at financials. Like, I'm just not my strong suit. So we hire a fractional COO to help us with that. But where do you feel yourself at the end of the day? Do you feel excited? Do you feel that anxiety? Do you get Sunday scaries? I mean, I still get Sunday scaries and I make my own schedule.
We all do.
Yes. Focus on the people that give you the good vibes, or focus on the people that buy into your energy. I mean, I'll never forget, I think it was Allison, but came to me from an appointment and said, like, hey, I want business cards. My hairdresser, my nail person, whoever it was, like, needs help, and I don't have business cards.
Yeah.
Or when you both came to me and said, like, hey, can we have more meetings?
Yeah.
I mean,
You love the meetings.
Love the meetings. And I kind of had, like, we talk about corporate PTSD, and it is a real thing, but listen to your employees, like, listen to what they have. I mean, I still can't fathom, like, being a micromanaging boss. And we've had tough conversations. And one of the things that still sticks with me is Destiny and I had a disagreement. I don't even remember what it was over. And you told Max, her husband, and Max had said, okay, but how cool is that you can have a disagreement?
Yes. And talk to her about it.
Yes.
Yes.
And that has forever stuck with me, because...
And I was like, you're right. Yeah. Because he knows we've been together for over 10 years now.
Right.
So he's been with me through all my career journey and my coming home. You know how you come home to your partner with your grievances. And it was just the anxiety. Everyone has had it. The anxiety of going to, like, your supervisor or whoever to talk about something that's bothering you, because you know they're not going to hear you out. And you're just like, well, what's the point? I don't have that with you. And that's huge. It's very hard to find, but it's awesome. It's a great feeling.
And we do. I mean, I tell Dan all the time, I'm like, they're all going to leave me and I'm going to be a solopreneur again. And that's, like, the reoccurring fear. But it's the difference of in something, and Elena, you weren't with us yet, but I was moving, I think, in 2021. And I don't know what happened, but I ended up with no Wi-Fi. Like, my Wi-Fi went out.
Yes.
I was going to move that week, and it wasn't, like, disconnected. It just, like, I think a storm or something happened, and you both worked till 7 p.m. I didn't ask you to, but you were both like, okay, what can I do? Like, tell me what I need to do to help you out. And that's what's key is, like, you both moved this year, or you both have really focused on having life changes, or life happens, or all that. And it's just like, you give your added weight where needed. And I just will never, ever, ever, I could never work in a true corporate environment, even if we end up selling the business and doing that. I could never go back corporate. And just the lack of respect, or just, like, the human emotion or human intelligence. I mean, I remember my cousin, like, died suddenly at 30 years old. And I cried in the bathroom. I went to the funeral the next day. And then Friday I was in office.
Oh, yeah. I remember when my grandma died and my boss was asking me when I was going to come back to work. Or she was dying. Okay. That was the hardest part because we didn't know. We knew she was going to pass.
Right.
You just never know how long it's going to take. I was very close with my grandma and I will just never forget that. And he just texted me like, okay, well, when do you think you're going to come in? Excuse me.
Well, and I think
awful.
having somebody like on the outside of it, I remember my phone call with you when I was like, yeah, I want to do this full time. And it was when my grandpa was in hospice.
Mm-hmm.
And as opposed to like corporate job of like things that you guys had, it was the exact like adverse reaction. It was, I need you to stay gone as long as possible.
Yes.
And like as everything, like there was a lot of traumatic things I feel like that happened this year.
Mm-hmm.
And like everybody was like very open and honest. And like as opposed to, like, you would yell at me, Angela, because I'd be like, no, I'm not emotional. Like, I like to work through things, like physically
And we're
work
like,
through things.
no, take a break.
Yeah, and everybody's like screaming at me because I'm like on like these calls. And Angela's like, you need to process. Like, you're processing jack crap right now. Like, I need you to get together. And it's like the opposite of what you see in like previous settings of before it was you counting your days of, okay, my grandpa's getting, like we lost my grandpa this year. And okay, he's getting buried on this day. And like, I need to take this day off because of the funeral and this day off for the burial. But like, you know, with my uncle and grandpa and everything else this year, it was like, I need you to stay gone as long as possible.
Yes.
And it was fighting me like left and right when I decided to come back to be like, no, I want to keep working. And everybody was like, go like make rocks.
We were like just,
We're going to hide these clients from you. They don't exist.
Yes.
Like, I need you to leave. Like, we got this. And that's so rare. But I guess the biggest thing is like coming from the environment that you were inside of and like understanding everything from, you know, normal bosses, air quotes. How did you become as self-aware as you are to be able to lead this business in the way that you do? Because I do think that's like a rare attribute. So what do you think kind of was like the causation or correlation to kind of getting on that path?
So I had a great first boss out of college, Bryce Patton. He was incredible. Like, I loved
Shout
him
out
to
Bryce.
pieces. We love Bryce.
Don't know who you are, but shout out.
He's great. Was always encouraging, and he was always like, you kick those guys' asses, because I was the only woman on our team. So he was always super encouraging and treated me as equal versus like, and he didn't know what I was making, didn't know all the things. And there was the pay discrepancy, as I mentioned on other podcasts, but he was really great and he treated me like an old friend. And I made mistakes and he would address me and say like, oh, you know, you need to do this differently or take your time when you're like calling employees because I made a mistake. But he sat me down like a human and wasn't like, you're a fucking idiot and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay. And then I remember, throwing it back to high school, I worked in a restaurant and my boss was so mean to me. And I was like our head trainer, but she like wouldn't give me time off for like graduation parties, which were the whole hype, as we know. And I missed so many of my friends' like grad parties and stuff like that because she's like, well, you need to work. And so already took off. And I'm like, but why? And I very much would like kiss ass and I tried to be the best I could be. And then when I ended up in that second job out of college, I was like, screw this. Like, kissing ass doesn't work in any way. I mean, when people are like, oh, go so far with it. But it's just like, what if the roles were reversed? What would you want to see? I mean, I remember not understanding. I made $30K out of school, but I was living at home, so it was fine. Oh, be number one in the company, make them a lot of money, and you'll get a raise. Well, I did that, but the ROI was not there. It was like, okay, so I essentially worked for free for a year while you all got new cars and management. So it's just like, it's not that serious. And when some people try to tell me how to run my business is like, you need to give up more. I'm like, I don't have that problem. I'm great at delegating. I am like, hey, y'all want to do this instead? Like, I'll take on this, you take on that. But it's honing into your strengths. And like, I know I wanted to be bought in. Like when I was super passionate about a job I worked for, I was like, oh, I want to make change and I want to do great things and I want to be bought in. And then when I was shut down and like, oh, sweetheart, no, we're not doing that. And that was so devastating. And I remember Destiny and Allison, I think this was like 2 years ago. And it was like, you would come to me with issues. And I was like, great, we're going to do this thing. You see an issue, you solve it, and you tell me about it. you don't need me to sign off on it. And that's fine. Like that was, we worked through your past corporate PTSD.
Oh yeah. I don't ask her. I just do it.
You just do it.
And then I come on and then when I exhausted all the options and I don't have any solutions, then I'm like, okay, hey, this is what I've done so far. I don't know what to do now.
Right. And thinking of how far we've come over the last year, I mean, our policies and procedures getting into place, or, okay, we screwed this up. Great, fine. But we are seeing the most business we've seen. And I want you to come to me with ideas. And I want you to come to me when you're having issues or things happening. And I stole this from a conference I went to, but like the whole red light, yellow light, green light in the mornings of you say red light if you're like not in a good mood, not want to make decisions. Yellow light is like, well, I'm here, I'm showing up, but I'm kind of like just waking up. Green light is like, I'm ready to go, I'm excited, I'm empowered, I'm passionate. So we do that every morning. And then like what you're looking forward to the most. And we just get an inside look because there's family drama, there's relationship drama, like there's so much going on in our lives and we don't know. And that's what I need to know. So instead of like one of you not performing well and then you tell me red light over and over, I'm like, that makes sense. Like, I don't need to reprimand you. I need to approach it and say like, what is going on with you? I don't need to reprimand you for your work. I want to say like, what's going on? And I feel like, and y'all can disagree, but that's how I approach it of like, what's going on with you? Because this is not who you normally are. Like you normally don't make mistakes or things don't get missed. So tell me what's like going on with you.
That's the best way to, I would say fix the problem, but get to the solution versus just berating somebody. So,
well, I mean, again, even like going back to like the things that happened this year, like, you know, I got out of a 3-year relationship and like, I told you guys first, like other than obviously like his and I conversation, but
of course
it was like minor details.
Fine.
But like, you know, like the next morning of like, hey, this just happened. And like, everybody's right there for console. It's like, okay, what do you need? Do you need this? Like, you know, do you need every meeting on this calendar? Do you need no meetings on the calendar? Like, do you need us to like not acknowledge you for 3 days? Do you need us to like put you on 17 different projects right now because I overwork myself and don't process anything? And it's like, it's right there. And it's like the family environment. Like I've told everybody this year, like it's a family. Like, because of working for
not
a
a toxic
business,
family.
Yeah. No. But like somebody where I can be like, there's 3 new guys this week and like going on all these dates with people or like, oh, this tragically just happened in my life. Like regardless what it is, it's like the support system. And like it's the trust and it's the love and it's the care. It's the, I can tell you guys something that's so stupid and you'd be like, yeah, she's an idiot, but like we love her. You know what I mean?
Bless her heart.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, she's really freaking stupid. Like she's definitely 23 right now.
Yeah.
You're like,
just a baby.
You're bringing us back. You're like, our child is being an idiot. But that's okay. It's just like the love and support system where like in corporate, like I was telling my parents the other day of, you know, some of my best jobs I've worked of like the corporate America where I thought I was like making it in air quotes because that's what society tells you need to do. Yeah. You're a number. Like HR doesn't know who you are. They ask you what your login is for these like benefit packages. Right. Or, like, you know, you work with a team of 30 and they don't even know your name and much less the entire organization to where that's like what society views as like, oh, you made it. Like, you know, your paycheck's this and this, but it's like, yeah, you hate your entire life.
Right.
And having that is like so beautiful and like to see the organization unfold that way is super cool.
So we went with the 10-minute long answer. So I hope everyone enjoyed that.
You went off on that. It wasn't even me. So is that from the what advice would you get?
Yes. We did the 10-minute option. Again, I hope you guys enjoy that.
I think you could have gone for longer. Like there's a lot of advice I feel like you have to like stockpiling.
Angela's version, 10-minute version.
Yeah.
It was a joke, but it really did come to fruition.
And this happens. It's fine.
As I know we're wrapping this up, I am so thankful for all of you to just like seeing the vision and being brought in and understanding like, yes, giving you like what this will be and like being bought in of like, hey, we're in the grind. We're going to laugh one day when we're the next Amazon or the next whatever company of like, these were the days, these were the days. And it's not always easy, but I have cried about this, so I'm not going to get emotional, but it really does bring tears to my eyes of just like how you all see my vision and you're supportive. And yes, we don't always get along, but we do, I would say 95% of the time. And I'm so fucking thankful for all of you. And I'm excited for us to hit the 1,000th episode and be like, oh, look at us bringing in millions of dollars and we're so wealthy. So maybe we'll do it from a private yacht when we're wealthy, you know?
Yes, with better champagne, with some Don Perignon.
Got this for $12.
This is Prosecco. I love me some Prosecco. I'm not upset about it. But, you know, hey,
So cheers.
Cheers.
So I'm going to end this.
Cheers to you, Ange. Shout out to you and all that you do. To the next 100.
Cheers to the next 100. Cheers to shitty bosses. Cheers to the people that inspire you and you want to prove wrong.
Thanks for listening.
And tune in next week for another episode of That's Business.
If you're looking for a career change and you're not sure where to start, the Resume Rescue can help. Sure, there's no such thing as the perfect fit for everyone, but here at the Resume Rescue, we're on a mission to find the perfect solution for you. Whether it's changing careers, updating a resume, learning LinkedIn, or practicing interviewing, we have you covered. Find us online at theresumerescue.com and find all of our contact info in our show notes.